Hello there. Are you sure you're in the right place? See the name on the door? This podcast is Spine Chillers and Serial Killers. Surely you don't want to come in here. You do. Well, I must warn you that things are pretty adult in here. Absolutely no children are allowed. Obscene language, shocking and horrendous stories to chill you to your core, and terrifying tales that'll keep you up at night. The ladies inside aren't quite right. Lovely and hilarious, but very strange. Still want in, do you? Well, you'll get what you're here for. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to this week's Spine Chillers and Serial Killers. I'm Tash.
I'm Emma.
And I'm Becky.
Hello.
Hello.
Everybody.
It's another episode.
It's another episode.
It is.
Are you all right, girls?
I'm half left, but yeah.
You absolute twat. Before I forget, last week's episode, really interesting fact. Cara Beth got in touch.
Oh, Cara Beth, we love you.
And I hadn't heard from Cara Beth for a while, so I was like, yay, Cara Beth, fact time! And it was really interesting. It was about the cemetery dogs, not cemetery dogs. Come on, brain work, the black dogs.
Yep.
So she said that people used to believe that the first person to be buried in a cemetery would be like doomed to have to be the guardian of the cemetery, so they wouldn't actually pass on. They'd just like haunt the cemetery, basically, protecting it.
The caretaker.
Yeah. So they started burying dogs, or a black dog, as the first person in the cemetery. And that's probably why a lot of the legends say that they can be protectors or that they roam around cemeteries.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I thought it was super interesting. And I was actually really annoyed that I hadn't found that piece of information myself.
But do you know what? What would our podcast be without her fact-checking us?
I mean, I feel like she's part of the team, to be honest.
Yeah. The glue that holds us together.
If we had a payroll, Cara Beth, you would be on it.
Oh, yeah. She would.
But we don't.
But we don't.
We don't. Oh, definitely not. Yeah. I think I'd be definitely asking Cara Beth to proofread some of my stuff. I'd be like, is that right?
Yeah, no, so I found that really, really cool, actually. I love a bit of history when it all
me too.
locks in and you're like,
together.
It all comes together and it's such a nice feeling.
Comes together.
I do feel like I found history so boring at school, like mind-numbingly boring. And I've officially reached the age where I find it so interesting now.
It is so interesting.
Like, so interesting. I'm like, tell me more about that.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's weird because, when you're at school, and I've said this so many times, if I went to school now, I would fucking love it.
School is wasted on children.
It's wasted on them. They're not enjoying
Send them back up the chimneys.
Down the mine. We are joking. Don't cancel us. I am against child labour.
Well.
Although, before coming on, I must admit, we were talking about the next generation. So what's the next generation after us? As millennials, is it Gen Z?
Gen X?
Gen X?
Gen Z? No, Gen X is
Gen
above
X is
us.
before hers. Is it not Gen Alpha?
No, they're the babies.
Gen X and then Gen Alpha.
No, Gen X is before us.
Oh, Gen Z.
Gen Z is after, and then it's Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha is like our babies.
Is it our kids?
Caitlin, my eldest, is Gen Z.
Oh, okay.
No, surely not.
She still is, yeah. And then when it gets like the year, she's the last in Gen Z, and then it's Gen Alpha.
Right.
And
So
then I don't know what
saying,
babies are. I don't know what babies are.
I don't know. Who's a baby?
It'd be B.
But they'll still be.
It just goes
They'll
through
still
the
be an
alphabet.
alpha.
Yeah.
But they'll still be alphas because it's like 20 years, isn't it? A generation spans.
Yeah.
So
I
how
hope we
come
don't go
aren't
back in
Gen
time.
Y?
What? It's
Hang
X,
on,
Because
no,
we're
but-
millennials, aren't we? Because of when.
X, Y, and Z.
Y. Z.
We're Y. In French, they call us Génération Y.
Do they?
Right.
Yeah.
But we're millennials because we grew up.
Yeah,
the
that's
2000s.
the English way of it. But yeah, we're the one before us, Gen X, is up to like the 80s ish. Yeah, up to the 80s. Millennials start in the 80s.
Yeah, because I'm like on the cusp of a
You're-
Gen X millennial.
So one of my friends is 10
We're
years
bang in
older
the middle
than
of
me,
millennials.
and she's like right on the as in right on the cusp.
Yeah, I think it is actually the year I was born.
So what year are you born?
83.
Right. So she's.
I think
she'll
it starts
be
at
81.
82, doesn't it? And then it goes to
Yeah.
97.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, as fascinating
Anyway.
as all this is, because, God, when did speaking about generations become such a...
It's because we're getting old, so it's interesting us more. So we can start bitching about the next generation, because who doesn't love that?
Yeah. I mean, bless their hearts, but we were saying they're a bit soft
So
before
soft.
coming. They are a bit
So
soft. Love your hearts. Bless you.
Do you see those reels on Facebook of squishy marshmallow things?
Yeah,
They look really
yeah.
real, but then they squish. That's
Yeah.
the next generation. So cute.
Yeah, you are. But then we're tough because life has literally just shat on us from the minute we were born and continues to do so. So, you know, yeah. I think
I
we're
don't know.
probably
I think
a bit
every
like,
generation has their struggles.
oh, I don't know. I think millennials have it. I think we're just so blasé now. We're like, oh, World War III. Why
Yeah.
not? Oh,
yeah.
a pandemic. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think we're just a bit like done with it. But anyway, the next generation. So, but it was actually my kids I wanted to talk about because they're such wusses. So this would be Gen Alpha. I realised earlier that I'd failed parenting completely when they didn't know what Sesame Street was, right?
I don't think my kids would.
Is that what that
Didn't know what
noise I
Sesame-
heard was earlier? Where I heard this like that. Was it you? I heard it from across all the way
Oh,
over
yeah,
here.
yeah. That was me going, oh my God, you don't know. Big Bird, what?
I was like, Echo. The joke.
The answer was like, oh, is that the thing with the red puppet? I nearly fell off my fucking chair. The red puppet? You mean Elmo? Jesus
Sir Elmo,
Christ.
I would have you know.
I've failed them as a mother.
Yeah.
I truly have. Anyway, so that got us talking about Barney. Barney came a little bit after.
Oh,
Yeah.
Barney.
I love you. You love
You
me.
love
me.
We're a
happy
family.
Anyway.
And I can't remember.
With a great big hug and a kiss from me to you.
Oh,
Oh,
I
is that
couldn't
what it
remember
is?
that.
I couldn't remember that bit. I was like, it goes na 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 na.
So go on
I used to love
YouTube.
Barney.
Put Barney on, and both of them are horrified. They're like, Mum, this is nightmare fuel.
It's fucking horrible. It's horrible.
I used to love
Emma.
a sick day.
I used to
I'm like-
love watching Barney, but as now if I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's horrible. I hate anything to do with puppets. Puppets are horrible.
Oh, you don't like puppets, do you? Anyway, I'm going to torture them tomorrow. I said, right, tomorrow we're having Fraggle Rock, Barney, Sesame Street. Ben came in, he was like, yeah, Sooty and Sweep.
Oh, sooty and sweet.
How old is Ben?
Oh, he got, bless his heart, he walked in and he was like, oh, Sooty and Sweep.
Sooty
He was
and
like
Sweep.
really into it.
And then he was like,
like,
I will retreat back to my cave.
no, he's like, oh, I remember this specific episode, and then went on to explain the episode to me and the two girls, and we're like, oh, that's nice. Sounds lovely.
Well done, Daddy.
Thanks, hon.
So, nightmare fuel.
He's having
This
a
is
little
fun, actually, because I feel like this leads really nicely into something I've got to show
Go on then.
you.
Oh, yeah, go on then.
Okay, so I will put a picture of this up on our social media when it goes out.
Oh, finally! The little mouse.
Can you see her?
Put her
Yeah.
close to the camera. Put your hand behind, like on the makeup videos. Oh,
So Tash is finally, she's got her taxidermy mouse. Go on, Tash, tell us about your mouse.
So she's a taxidermy mouse. She is a mystic one. So she's got a little ball and her
Crystal
tarot
ball.
cards. Crystal ball, yeah. May have a little confession. I don't like it as much as I thought I would. A little bit creepy.
After all these years, have you got? I want a mouse.
Her tail makes me feel sick. So I'm actually just going to move her away
Can I
from
look
me.
at the tail?
Show me the tail.
Oh, it's not too bad.
It's
Then
a bit
again, I can't
bumpy.
see it.
Can you
Oh,
see?
no, it's bumpy.
Can you
Yeah,
see
it's
the back
bumpy.
bit where obviously she's been stuffed?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put her out of my eyesight. But we do need to name her. And
I love
Yes.
the fact that for years you've been like, I want a mouse.
Yeah.
I want a taxidermy
Yeah,
mouse.
and now she's got one. She's like, her voice has changed. She's like, I really like it.
it's not for me. You know, a bit like anal. We have to try it. Not for everyone. Not for me. So.
Oh, snorted so loud it really hurt my mouth.
I can't get over you don't like it.
Oh, I'm just
Wasn't
very.
expecting it.
I'm very glad I only spent £40 on her and not the $200 one that I wanted from America. That I was very willing to pay for, but they didn't ship to the UK.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad.
someone
You got
out
the
there was
starters.
looking out there for me.
Funny.
You got the starter pack of dead mice just to see if it was your thing.
Yeah.
Am I into dead mice? Turns out
I had to try it, I
not so
suppose.
much. Not so much.
Am I too vanilla for dead mice?
But she does need naming because that feels only fair.
I
Yeah.
think she deserves a name. She might grow on you.
I mean, she did die for
She
you,
died
right?
for me. Yeah. Well, she actually
She
died.
didn't.
She died for food.
She died.
She died and was going to be fed to a snake or something. One of my friends has suggested Betty. I don't hate it.
Betty's all right.
Yeah.
My name's better, obviously.
Remind me of your name.
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. No, I don't hate it either. Becky.
I think she's really sweet, and I think she looks like a beryl.
Beryl. Isn't that your grandma's
Oh.
name?
Yeah, but she really looks like a beryl. If my grandma was a little mouse.
So,
See, I do like Beryl as well.
so Becky wants Beryl. Emma wants
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. And
I mean, if you can't pronounce it, it might be
I
a
can't,
problem.
but listen, I'm not going to say her name that often. And I'm leaning towards Betty.
Betty and Beryl.
But I am willing for our lovely listeners to vote. So
Okay.
we will put up polls on our Facebook and on our Instagram and Spotify with a picture of the mouse. And we will put that out when we release this episode. So when you're listening to it. And then the next episode, we will collect the data and we will reveal her name.
Cool.
Unless I've sold her.
Unless she's in the bin. Oh,
Poor love.
Yeah. So over to you.
that was hysterical. I think that's going to be one of my... You know how some of the best things ever that happen, you just store them and they make you giggle, like, whenever you think about it. That's going to be mine.
Well, I'm glad to have been of service.
It was the face. It was the face. And the voice, it was, I don't like her. All right. It was a normal Friday morning for the Dishon family. On the 10th of September 1999, their quiet home in Deatsville Road in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, was just waking up. Edna and Mike Dishon had already left for work. Their two sons, Christopher and Michael, boarded the school bus for Burnham Middle School, and 17-year-old Jessica Dishon, the oldest, grabbed her things and stepped outside to her brand new red Pontiac, the car she'd bought herself with the money that she'd earned working at Hardee's. So it wasn't a brand new car, but it was brand new for her.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I've never had a brand new
And
car.
she worked hard for it.
Me neither.
No.
Who can afford a fucking brand new car?
Not me.
No, it wasn't brand new. It was just, she'd just bought it.
No, we're supporting that. We're proud of her.
We understand.
All right. Oh, I know. I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying, why did she get a brand new car?
No, we're saying we can't afford a new car. Good for you. You've gone and got that car. That's your car. You deserve that car.
Yeah, she does. Lovely Jessica. But Jessica never made it out of the driveway.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I know. I'm sorry. This is my thing, though. It's my role. Don't shout at me.
She's so...
I come on this podcast. Everyone knows why I'm here. But every time I'm going to have to really disappoint the girls again because there's murder in my story. Oh, dear.
It's okay. We can get through it.
Yeah, together. At around 1:30 p.m, Edna Dishon, so the mum, returned home from work. When she pulled in, she was like, Jessica's car's still in the driveway. So as she's walking up to the house, she goes in, calls Jessica's name, and she's not there. So she goes back out to the car and looks in, and inside the car was her backpack, her work clothes, her purse, and her phone, and also one of her shoes.
Oh, God. Your stomach would just sink to the bottom of your feet.
Yeah. But the most chilling detail is when she picked up her phone, and this was late 90s, early 2000s mobile phones, so it's like a brick. And that's all it did. You could call people and that's it.
Yeah.
She picked up the phone and looked at the screen, and on the screen was 9-1, as if she was trying to call 911.
Oh, no.
Edna's stomach dropped. She knew something was wrong. She started searching frantically, calling out for her daughter, but Jessica was nowhere to be seen. A few hours later, Jessica's brother Michael came home. At first he thought she maybe had gone out with friends, but as the hours passed, unease turned into fear. By the time the dad, Mike Dishon, got home, the family was in full panic. They called Jessica's school to see if she had turned up that day, and no, she never showed up. So Edna and Mike did what any terrified parents would do. They called the police. And this is where things take a very frustrating turn. When Mike Dishon reported his daughter missing, Deputy David Greenwell took the call. He admits it did look very concerning, but he's just a deputy and he needed a detective to look into it. Twice he reached out to Detective Charles Mann, asking for help. Twice Mann refused to. She's a runaway, he said. She'll be back. But Jessica wasn't a runaway. Her family knew it, her friends knew it, and soon the entire community would know it. Jessica's family started searching everywhere for her, without any help of the police. There was a place called the River Bottoms, where kids would sneak off to party and do drugs or whatever. The family searched for hours and hours, and they were all so exhausted and emotional that her uncle actually vomited and nearly collapsed when they were searching. Desperate, Mike Dishon turned to the FBI, and a search party was formed. Volunteers combed through the area, hoping and praying for a sign of Jessica. And then the Dishons' next-door neighbours, the Brooks brothers, started acting strange. They began making disturbing phone calls to the family, mocking them and taunting them.
That's not only strange, but one would say it's quite sick.
Yeah, they'd call up and say, "Please don't kill me, please don't kill me," and put down the phone.
That's sick.
And when they were questioned by police, one of the brothers, Bucky Brooks, admitted something unsettling, that he had seen Jessica that morning. Obviously, not enough to charge him or anything like that, but it was enough to make him a person of interest, along with the way that they're acting. And soon the entire case would take a dark and heartbreaking turn. It was a discovery no one in the area would ever forget. On the 27th of September 1999, the search for 17-year-old Jessica had come to a tragic end. 60 to 90 feet off Greenwell Ford Road, in an overgrown stretch of the river bottoms, a school bus driver named Karen Hobbs saw something in the grass. A figure, a body. Jessica's mother, Edna, was called to the scene, and in that moment, the unthinkable became real. It was Jessica.
Oh, shit.
Her body had been left there, exposed, as if someone had posed her there, wanted her to be found. So what it was is someone had propped her up against a tree, but in an area that they'd already searched. So it's as if whoever killed her went back and put her somewhere that she could be found.
Okay.
Her body had been left there, exposed, as if someone wanted her to be found. But what they found next was even more disturbing. Jessica's fingers were missing, and her jaw was broken. The autopsy would later reveal something horrifying, that Jessica had been kept alive for a number of days before she was killed. That wasn't the only thing that raised questions. Investigators determined that Jessica's body that had been moved shifted about 15 feet closer to the road just 18 hours before she was discovered. So again, leaning towards the whole someone wanted her found. Jessica's next door neighbour, Bucky Brooks, had been on the police's radar from the start. When first questioned, like I said earlier, he claimed that he saw Jessica get into her car that morning, which she didn't because the car was still there.
Sorry, is he called Brookie Brook?
Bucky Brooks.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, he sounds like a character, doesn't he? Yeah. He said that he saw Jessica get into her car that morning, but she could have just been getting in the car and then the kidnapping happened. We don't know.
Yeah.
But later his story would change. Suddenly, he hadn't seen her at all.
Okay.
Investigators decided to put Bucky through a polygraph test, and he failed miserably. No alibi, a failed lie detector test, and a shifting story. Very suspicious.
Also, the fucked up phone calls.
Yeah, that is rank.
It's vile. Even if he ends up being innocent, I don't like him just for that.
Yeah. It was enough for authorities to charge Bucky with the kidnapping and murder of Jessica Dishon. Her family, especially her father Mike, was convinced this was the man who took their daughter. Mike had actually seen Bucky burn something in a barrel a few days after the murder as well, and it ended up to be some clothes, but where they lived in the countryside, apparently this was quite common, but it's, again, very suspicious.
What do you mean it's quite common? Why are people burning clothes
apparently
in a barrel?
It was at the time. Burning your rubbish was quite common, apparently.
Yeah, but not clothes.
Instead of throwing it away. Yeah, that's very weird.
Put it in the
Very
charity
suspicious.
bin.
That's suspicious as fuck.
Yeah.
We don't, hang on a minute. Can't be all like, oh, that happens. People burn stuff,
Yeah,
not
nothing
clothes.
to see here.
Right.
Yeah. So the dad was convinced that this was the man who took their daughter. But when the trial date arrived on the 29th of January 2003, the case against Bucky Brooks began to fall apart. Detective Charles Mann, the lead investigator, so this was the guy that kept saying, nah, she's a runaway. And it was only when the FBI got involved that he was like, maybe I should look into this.
Oh,
so
maybe.
they lost a lot of time. They lost days because he wouldn't look into it. Because he's a twat.
He's a knob. I mean, who leaves without all their stuff and a shoe? After
just
having
walking around with
dialed
one shoe.
911 on their phone, for fuck's sake.
No, because she's just a runaway, Emma.
I'm angry.
Mm-hmm. So Detective Charles Mann, the lead investigator, admitted under oath that they didn't have much evidence, but they knew it was Bucky. And the reason why they knew it was Bucky was because he failed the polygraph test. So this was a very bad thing to say in court because, for those who don't know, polygraph tests may be used in an investigation, but they are not admissible in court. So you can't say that.
No.
So the minute he said that, the defense is like,
Well, hey.
woohoo,
Yeah.
mistrial. So, and there was actually no evidence whatsoever.
That it was him.
It was just circumstantial at best.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was a bit weird. At the defense as well, they pointed the finger again towards somebody else. They said, this is someone else, and he's probably done it. So what came to light later is Bucky Brooks had an IQ of just 61. For context, the average IQ of an adult male falls between 85 and 114. The polygraph test, he wouldn't have understood half of those questions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, when the footage of Bucky's police questioning was reviewed, it became clear that many of his answers were led on by investigators. He was kind of coerced into saying the things that they wanted to hear.
Oh.
It wasn't a confession, it was a coercion.
Yeah.
And just like that, the case crumbled. The trial was dismissed, and it was a mistrial. Jessica's family was devastated.
Oh, God.
They thought they had her killer, and he was just going to walk free. And then things started to take a new direction. Enter Detective Lynn Hunt, a cold case specialist. Hunt took a fresh look at the case, and her attention shifted to a different suspect, James Coulter, a known drug dealer Jessica had been involved with. So this was the person that the defense was like, we think it's this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Some believe Coulter, or someone connected to him, had something to do with her death. But just as quickly as Coulter became a person of interest, he was ruled out because he did have a very solid alibi. And once again, the case went cold. So if not Bucky Brooks and not James Coulter, who did murder Jessica Dishon? 14 years later.
Wow.
And that's how long her case had remained unsolved. 14 years of silence. But in September of 2013, a voice finally broke through. From inside the Kentucky State Penitentiary, an inmate came forward with a story. A chilling confession. One that changed the course of the investigation forever. This wasn't a rumour. It wasn't just a dead end. But this time, he gave a name. And it was someone that Jessica knew. Someone she trusted. It was her own uncle, Stanley Dishon. This uncle that vomited and claimed that he didn't feel very well, so that they had to stop searching. And it came to be that he did that, like, meters away from where Jessica's body would be found later on.
Oh, that's not looking very good at all, is it?
No. So, an inmate who came forward claims he once shared a cell with a man who openly bragged about killing Jessica. According to him, Stanley Dishon had kept Jessica alive for days before ending her life. The reason? She had started seeing a boy her own age. A teenage romance that enraged Stanley.
Oh, was he one of those uncles?
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, that poor girl.
Yeah. In his sick mind, she belonged to him. So he took her, and when it was over, he mutilated her body, trying to stage the scene, hoping to make it look like the work of drug dealers or even the mafia. A final desperate attempt to throw off suspicion. But how much of this story was true? Informants aren't always reliable. They usually talk for their own benefit to try and cut time off their sentence to gain favour. But this inmate wasn't actually asking for anything. He didn't want a deal. He didn't want any leniency. He just wanted the truth to be known. And then he gave Detective Hunt something specific, a clue, and it was one that she could verify. Jessica's personal belongings were still out there, buried under a fallen tree in the same area where she was killed. Hunt, alongside Jessica's brother Michael, went searching. For hours in the pouring rain, they dug 175 holes.
Oh, wow.
And nothing. They were just about to give up, and Michael suggested one last stop. A barn, a place where they used to go party. Inside, in the dim light, they found something. A piece of fabric. Material that looked exactly like Jessica's missing bedsheet that went missing the day of her disappearance. And when they got back to the Dishon house, they checked her bed, and the parents had kept her bedroom like as a shrine almost. They kept it the same.
Yeah.
And those bed sheets were still in like her ottoman in her room, and it was that part of the bed sheet that was missing. It was missing the sheet on the bed. It had the duvet and the pillow, but not the sheet for this set. So it matched. It was a moment of sickening realization. Stanley had been inside that house. He knew the layout of the house, and he knew exactly where to take her. As Detective Hunt dug deeper into Stanley's past, a pattern emerged, a deeply disturbing one. Through interviews, Hunt traced Stanley's movements over the years. From the late 80s through to 2002, he had drifted between homes, bouncing from sibling to sibling, so his siblings, and wherever he went, there were victims, family members, young girls, and Jessica Dishon wasn't the first, and she wasn't the last. In fact, according to the inmate's account, Stanley Dishon had been abusing Jessica for years, a dark secret hiding in plain sight. Looking back, the signs were there. The morning of the search, when they came within a mile of Jessica's body, that was when he faked feeling ill. He stopped sleeping. He started watching the news obsessively, like a man waiting for something, like a man terrified that any second now, the truth might finally catch up to him. Michael Dishon had once looked up to Stanley and trusted him. Now he was saying that his brother deserved the death penalty. But Jessica's murder was just one of his crimes. As the investigation unfolded, more victims came forward. 3 more family members. In addition to Jessica's assault, there was a female relative who was abused in 2 separate time frames. At one point when she was between 6 and 9 years old, and the other when she was between 15 and 20 years old.
It's fucking gross.
A 7-year-old female relative, a 9 to 10-year-old boy, and another 7 to 10-year-old girl. And then lastly, a 6 to 8-year-old girl.
Jesus Christ.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
He's a monster.
After false leads and botched investigations and a family torn apart by grief, Stanley Dishon was charged with multiple counts of sexual assault, rape, and incest. And finally, Jessica's murder. Stanley finally stood in a courtroom, but what did he do? He didn't confess, he didn't fight, he took an Alford plea. So an Alford plea is not an admission of guilt, just an agreement that the evidence against him was strong enough to convict.
Okay, so he's kind of accepting his fate, but he's not saying it out loud.
He's almost doing it in like almost like a gaslightly way. Like, be like, oh, well, if you say so, then obviously it's true. Just like, I don't know, it just seems like...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What had he been in prison for before?
Oh, I think he'd touched someone else. He's in there for kiddie touching. That's why he was in prison.
So he was already in prison for being gross.
Yeah, this was in the later on, like years later. That he was put in prison for that. And that's when he had a cellmate and he decided to brag. So he did plead guilty for 4 counts of sexual assault and the, in quotes, like manslaughter in the case of his niece, Jessica Dishon. But in exchange for a plea deal, he took 20 years with parole.
That doesn't seem like a lot.
No, he could be walking free as early as December 31st, 2028. So in 3 years' time, he could be getting out.
I don't really know what to say about that.
I don't think he should get parole. He's just going to do it straight away. All those people that he's abused, and he's murdered one of them. Why is he being let out?
He should have his penis chopped off, cut up, and served to him like a sushi roll.
I agree, Tash. Just don't let him out.
No, I think they should just get an island somewhere, put them in it, and just let them all fend for themselves. Stanley would say, I've been wrongly convicted. I did not kill Jessica, and I did not have anything to do with that, and I am innocent. But if Stanley was so innocent, why did another inmate, all the way back then, say otherwise? And then Detective Hunt uncovered a letter that had been buried in evidence for over a decade. It was a second informant that came forward in 2002 that he had shared a cell with Stanley, and he said that Stanley had admitted to killing Jessica then. But not only that, he had described exactly where the body had been dumped, yet nothing was done. What the fuck the police were doing, I do not know. But it was at the time they were really focused on Bucky Brooks. So that's all they did, was concentrate on him.
It worries me, to be honest, to see how
it's been handled terribly.
Yeah, how incompetent some investigations are handled.
You know,
how incompetently.
Yeah, when Detective Hunt wanted to reopen the case and started looking into it, she went to the parents' house and they got a box out of under a bed in her room, and they opened it and there was this was the stuff that they found in the car: her shoe, her phone, her backpack. Do you not think that should have been in an evidence locker somewhere?
Yes.
I mean, it had been contaminated. The whole crime scene was contaminated. It was all rubbish. But, yeah, that should have been put somewhere, maybe. Just in case there might be that little thing called DNA. Or, it's just the proper way to do it.
The mind boggles.
Oh, yes.
I just... You must, as their family, her family must feel so fucking let down.
Yeah. So the Commonwealth Attorney had the letter, and so did the Sheriff's Office, and both just ignored it. Had they taken it seriously, Jessica's case might have been solved years earlier, and also it might have saved some of the other family members from traumatizing abuse.
Fucking hell.
But by the time investigators finally turned their attention to Stanley, the key DNA evidence had been lost or tampered with. There is no way to prove he was the killer because they'd fucked everything up so much. So that's why Stanley took the plea deal and then he'll eventually get out. So the sentence is far lighter than what he would truly deserves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For Jessica's parents, there's no doubt in their minds. Stanley Dishon is guilty. Mike Dishon said, I'd look at it this way. If he was innocent, he should never have taken a plea bargain. If you didn't do it, you fight for your innocence.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%.
And yet, even knowing this, even believing that Stanley was responsible for their daughter's murder, there is still a lingering doubt. Because how did Stanley move Jessica's body alone? He keeps saying it would have taken 2 people, but I just don't get that. She was only 17. She was a little girl. She wasn't, super heavy or anything. He could have easily have moved her body. I don't understand why they keep saying that. A lot of the articles were it would have been 2 people. Fuck that. No, I'm sure he could have, If he was that desperate, he could have easily dragged a body. It would have been a little bit hard, but...
It wasn't that far either, was it?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it wasn't that far. If he was dragging it for miles, maybe, but there is, like, doubt that there was a second person involved. So Edna Dishon says, I think Stanley did it. My mind's not going to change about that. But if there are other people involved, they don't need to be out there on the streets. So Edna and Mike would
Agreed.
divorce after a few years after Jessica's death. It just got too much for them and they moved out of the area because they were just seeing everyone as a threat and that everyone could have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is normal.
Oh, understandable, yeah.
Yeah. Through all of this, it's easy to focus on the darkness, on the crime, on the failures of a justice system. But Jessica Dishon was more than that. More than a case file. She was a person, a 17-year-old girl with dreams and with passions, with a future. She was a high school senior. She had a job. She loved to cook. Sometimes things her family could barely eat. Her brother Michael once joked. She wanted to study culinary arts. Her life was just beginning. Until someone, a person that she should have been able to trust, ripped it away from her. And after all these years and after all the pain, Jessica's mother, Edna, sums it up best. This isn't justice.
No. Oh, bless them.
And there we are. That's my story.
Well, thanks.
This week.
Fucking hell.
Horrible.
If while you're listening to this, you've thought, oh, Emma and Tash aren't responding when they should, we had massive technical issues, and for the first half of that story, we couldn't hear. So poor Becky had to just talk into the void.
It felt lonely at times.
Oh, bless you.
Lonely.
Yeah, you made up for it in the second half. It's fine.
So lonely.
Would you like something a little bit more light-hearted to finish this episode?
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yes.
there is a surprise. Oh, yes. There is a surprise at the end.
Oh, is it chocolate?
It's not chocolate, but you'll see.
Oh.
Anyway, picture this. It's 1984. And Ken Webster, an economics teacher, and his girlfriend Debbie live in a cottage called Meadow Cottage, which sounds very quaint. It's an old cottage in the quiet village of Doddleston, 4 miles southwest of Cheshire, England. Now, when I say old, I mean like proper old, like 300-year-old fixer-upper.
Ooh, lovely. Love a fixer-upper.
That they've been painstakingly renovating from the ground up. Now, if you ever follow ghost hauntings and stuff like that, a bit of renovating usually stirs things up.
Yeah. It's not got the best record, has it?
Well, if you're going to get haunted, it's after renovating.
Yeah.
So, as anyone who's ever tackled a home renovation will tell you, it's a one-way ticket to relationship strain. Because nothing quite says romance like arguing over wallpaper and inhaling plaster dust together. They'd already tackled the downstairs, but the upstairs still needed work. However, they weren't diving into that just yet. They were taking like a renovation break. So enter Nick, a friend of the couple who had just come back from travelling, and she's completely skint. Since she was broke and needed a place to stay, she moved in with them for a while, offering to help out with the decorating in exchange for a roof over her head. Good deal. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah,
So at
great.
this point, Ken, Debbie and Nick were just 3 people living a chaotic, half-finished house, navigating the usual struggles of cohabitation. Everybody clear?
Yeah.
Were they all boning?
No, they were not. I mean, I don't know, possibly, but it was
You were so defensive. No!
not that kind of story, Tash.
No.
Listen, maybe, but I don't know. It's not in the story. Nick was the first to see them. Tiny little 6-toed footprints made from the dust of the renovations, appearing to climb the wall. At first they laughed, assuming it was one of their friends playing a prank. They theorised about how it could have been done. Maybe someone had used a chair or a small ladder to reach so high, as the prints stretched all the way up to the ceiling. This was in the late August of 1984, and after a while the footprints faded. By autumn, no one really paid attention to them anymore. I mean, if you see, like, 6 toes is weird.
Depends where you live.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And they're going up the wall to the ceiling. I would have difficulty believing that it was a friend that did that as a prank. It's just really weird.
It's really weird. But what
Bit of a
else
dick
would you
move.
think?
Yeah.
I would think it's some sort of animal.
Like a human foot with 6 toes.
Oh, like what size are we talking? Like
A size 5.
Is that what
Really?
it says?
Yeah, size 5. Yeah.
That's quite a big foot.
No, I think it's quite a small foot, actually.
Well, no, I'm a 7. So you're 2 sizes less than mine.
Okay, so it's just 1 less than mine. It's a 38. in
I'd
French,
say it's an
size
average
5.
size female foot.
Listen, in the book they said tiny, 6 toes, about size 5.
Well, maybe it's a child's size 5.
There we go.
I need more specific.
I've just got size 5 for you, babes. That's all I've got.
I don't know what's worse. Is it worse being small or big?
I don't know.
Actually,
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Either way.
I think if it's a kid's size 5, that's creepy. But actually, a woman's size 5 is not. If it was then like a size 12, an adult size 12, that would be really wild.
Yeah.
Basically, I can cope with 6 toes and a size 5.
The thing that's troubling me, we'll see a bit later, is they suspect it to be one of their mates called John.
John's only got size 5 feet.
But exactly.
That's
bloody hell.
unattractive. That's an ick.
Yeah. Oh, but it's got really tiny little Donald Trump hands.
So this is, for me, it's incoherent that they're blaming it on a friend playing a prank because it's tiny, 6 toes, walking up your wall. So Nick, the lady who's there, like, to help them renovate, she eventually painted over them, giving the kitchen a cosy glow of a finished room.
Great.
Lovely. But the next morning, Ken noticed something chilling. The footsteps had reappeared. They weren't exactly the same, so it's not like the pattern had just come through the paint, right?
Right.
You know how you can paint over a stain?
I do, yeah.
That's not the case here, because the feet are in different places. They're in the same kind of spot on the wall, but the pattern's different, okay?
Right.
Ken immediately called Debbie and Nick to come and see, and they all agreed that it wasn't funny anymore. The laughter and light-hearted theories vanished. Nick in particular was absolutely terrified. She even considered moving out.
I don't blame Nick.
No. Afraid of whatever presence was in the house. But after much discussion, she decided to stay and painted over the 6-toed footprints once again. After that, they never reappeared. But from that night on, Ken, Debbie and Nick avoided going downstairs after dark, and I think I would be very much the same.
What if you're really thirsty?
Look, you're thirsty, or...
Just take a bottle of water to bed.
Yes, take water up to bed, because I'd be up there thinking, there's a 6-toed demon walking up my wall, I don't want to see it.
What? Oh, God, what's worse, knowing he's down there or wondering if he's down there?
Wondering is less. Knowing it's down there is horrible.
Yeah, why are we debating? Knowing is definitely worse.
They're just laying
I was
in
like,
bed.
oh, I can't go
They're just
downstairs
laying in
because
bed,
the demon's
really
there.
thirsty.
Oh, well, how would you feel? All right, you're really thirsty, Tash. I'm going to go downstairs because there might be a demon because I'm scared. Or I'm not. I'm going to go downstairs and there is a fucking demon and I need to run upstairs before it bites my toes.
Oh, well, depends how thirsty I am. But I'm not drinking.
Tash gets thirsty.
I'm not drinking water from the sink upstairs.
Oh, God, no. That's water is not for drinking. It's not. Kitchen tap all the way. Right.
But why does it taste so different? Because it's the same.
I know why.
Pipes.
I know why.
Go on then.
Why?
So
Tell me.
before, you know, when we had like boilers, you know, when you have like a water tank in your house.
Like,
Yeah.
I have one.
Well, I don't have one. So in my old house in England, I had like a 200-litre water tank.
Mm.
And that would serve the water that you heat up.
Yeah.
And it would be in the loft normally.
Yeah.
And that's the water for the sink and
Yeah.
the bathroom.
Yeah.
But then the water that's in downstairs is like fresh water. So it is stale water upstairs.
I'm going to have to fact check that.
That's what I was told.
Very quick boiler fact
Oh,
before
no.
we carry on.
We've got the listeners on the edge of their seat. Oh, boiler facts. Oh, I love it when they do this.
Yeah, go on, Becky.
Don't. Right. Did your parents ever tell you not to drink the hot water or warm water tap because
Yes.
once someone that they knew had a bird fall in it and the bird died, obviously, because it was in the hot water tank, and then they started getting feathers coming through the tap.
No,
So
my
you couldn't
parents
drink
didn't
it.
tell me about the feathers.
But my mum and dad told me that, and then some of my friends, their mum and dad told them that. So I was like, is this like a 90s lie that we all got told?
It's just a weird Yorkshire lie by the sounds of it.
No, I'm from Yorkshire. There were no feathers. But I was told not to drink warm water.
I've just figured out how the fuck did the bird even get in there, because it's a closed tank. This is great.
Why aren't we famous?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, so a couple of days after the footprints had been dealt with and the situation felt a lot less tense, the three of them took a trip into Chester to stock up on food. Upon their return, they left the cat tins on the floor, lazily stuffing the rest of the shopping into their already overfilled cupboards, deciding that they'll deal with it properly in the morning. I felt that, because that's the kind of thing I would
Me,
do.
every single time
Just
I go
stuff
shopping.
it in.
Yeah, just the bread cupboard, just like push it all in.
Yeah, the crisps as well.
But when Ken woke up and came downstairs around 8 a.m, he was met with an unnerving sight. The cat tins had been stacked into a pyramid. Not only that, but 3 extra tins from the cupboard had been added on top. He stood there staring, trying to process what he was looking at. What kind of prank was this?
It's like, oh, everything that he sees that's weird. Oh, it must be another prank.
What jokesters of friends they have.
Imagine living in a family that does pranks. No, thank you. That'd be a nightmare. But you know, like the real pranks where it's like not funny at all, that you see on like YouTube and stuff.
Oh, no.
Oh, what a nightmare.
None of
nah,
that.
Can't be asked.
Right, Debbie and Nick eventually emerged from their rooms expecting just another morning, until they saw the pyramid of tins. Their reaction, pretty much the same as Ken's. What the actual fuck? At first, their suspicions turned towards one of Ken's friends, John.
Oh, John. He's
So-
at it again.
Bloody John.
With
So
his size 5 feet.
John and another friend, Stennett, never heard that name before.
I
Stennett.
feel like, is it not like a jokey name?
That is a mix between Stanley and Emmett.
Stennett.
That name's a prank.
Easy. Sorry to all the Stennetts out there. So John and Stennett were regular visitors. I kind of get the impression that it's a very chill house where all the mates can just walk in and out whenever they want.
Oh, nightmare.
Ken's a musician. He's got loads of musical equipment. John and Stennett are both musicians. They like jam together, and sometimes they go to the house to use Ken's equipment to record stuff. So, you know, it's that kind of laid back atmosphere. And also, John has a little bit of a crush on Ken's girlfriend, Debbie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The drama.
It happens.
Everybody knows, and so he kind of finds any excuse to turn up and hang out with his mate's girlfriend. John in particular had a very odd sense of humour, and it wouldn't have been that out of character for him to pull a prank. But Ken couldn't see it. John loved a joke, sure, but tiny six-toed footprints and weird tin stacking, it was just too much, even for him.
Too crazy. It's just too crazy for our John.
Where is this story going? There's no...
As I said it, I heard it.
Oh, did you watch this on a documentary? And please, was the person like, oh, we just thought that was too crazy for our John?
No, those are all my own words.
Come on, this is really serious. They've gone through some hardship here.
My abs hurt.
There's a love triangle. It has everything. There's this story.
A musical instrument.
Pranks. An extra toe. Everything.
I can't breathe. Right.
I can't look at you because I'm going to laugh more.
Look at Emma's face.
I can't.
Oh.
God, what a story.
Emma, it has everything. Oh.
Come on, this is serious. These people have been through something and here we are mocking them.
I'm more laughing at the stupid way I have written this. Oh, right, okay.
Oh, please read that last sentence one more time.
No.
Oh, right.
Ken's suspicions were only reinforced when, 2 mornings later, they walked into the kitchen and saw yet another bizarre arrangement. This time it wasn't tins. I've got the giggles, I'm so sorry. It was 2 bottles of lemonade, a bag of cat biscuits, and a kitchen roll.
Can we just skip to the part where you tell us what's happened?
No.
You're just reading a shopping list. Does anyone die in this? Because we're being so insensitive.
No. Oh. Two bottles of lemonade, a bag of cat biscuits, and been very carefully balanced into another stack.
This is so weird. Actually, quite hard things to stack. So
Exactly. This is why it's creepy. You've got to picture it.
Yeah.
I think you need to say them again.
No.
I heard kitchen roll, but I missed the first bit. What's the first one?
2 bottles of lemonade with a bag of cat biscuits on top, topped off with a kitchen roll.
No, but that...
Yeah, that is quite hard.
No, but
that is hard.
hard.
So this wasn't just a random thing. It wasn't just random clutter. Someone or something had deliberately arranged these objects in almost an impossible way. Ken knew John well, and while he was a joker, he didn't have the patience to do something like that. You would. It would fall over and you'd be like, oh, fuck this, it's not worth it kind of thing.
Yeah, and we all know John wouldn't do that more than once.
No.
John. He'd just be like, oh no, not John. He'd be like, no, this is too much.
Are you terrified yet, by the way? Because this is scary.
I'm crying. That's how bad it is. I'm crying.
The funniest
Tears
thing I've
running
ever
down my
heard.
face.
But it wouldn't
Kitchen
be.
roll
It
just
wouldn't
really
be.
brought it home.
No, it wouldn't be if it was in my kitchen, mainly because I don't have a cat, but...
I'd be like, what have the kids been doing?
So the unease settled in for good, like an unwanted housemate. The trio's imaginations started to run wild. Each old house noise freaked them out. They started seeing shadows out the corner of their eyes and had an overwhelming sense of an invisible presence in their bedroom at night. Of course, they told themselves it was just tricks of the mind, a combination of stress, exhaustion, and an old house full of creaks and groans. But even so, the cottage had become a much scarier place to live. It was small, and if you wanted to be alone, the only thing to do was to go out for a drive. And that's exactly what Ken did a few days after the second bizarre kitchen stack. Upon his return, Debbie and Nick greeted him with anxious faces. They had something new to report. As they'd been sitting by the fireplace chatting, a huge blast of cold air had suddenly burst through the room, catching a newspaper on the floor and throwing it up in the air, where it scattered into multiple pieces. Sure, the cottage was old and it could be drafty, but this? This didn't seem possible. The girls were visibly shaken. Nick, who had resigned from teaching, was planning on entering the arts. She wanted to start or join a cabaret. It's just so fucking random, isn't it? And as I'm reading it, I'm realising...
Whoever wrote the story before you rewrit it has just put a load of words into, like, a search engine and come up with a story.
No, this happened.
These people are just on drugs and they're like, you know what we should do? We should do a cabaret. And then it'll be so cool.
This actually happened. It's a very famous book. Okay. So Nick wanted to start or join a cabaret, so she began writing sketches and dialogues in hopes of gaining enough performing credits to qualify for an equity card. Now, for those who don't know, I didn't know this. An equity card was once a must-have for professional performers in the UK. It essentially acted as proof that the actor or entertainer was eligible to work in the industry. These days, it's more of a prestigious membership rather than a strict requirement, but it's still considered a sign of professional status in entertainment. So do you understand what an equity card is?
Yeah.
I do now.
Good. You hadn't heard of it either.
No.
No.
Ken had a great idea.
Go on, Ken.
Since Nick needed to write up all her sketches and scripts, he suggested she should use a word processor insteed of a typewriter. He figured he could borrow one from the school where he worked. Now, just pause for a second and remember what word processors were like in the very early 1980s.
I don't know what one is.
A word processor, is a computer. So it's basically the very first home computers. You could literally just use them for writing and editing your text and printing documents. And maybe, if you were lucky, you could play a very pixelated game or two, like Pong or something.
Great.
They had no memory, so everything had to be saved onto... What did it have to
Floppy
be saved?
disk.
A floppy disk. Seems really primitive now, but really it wasn't that long ago. But it's just crazy to think how quickly technology evolves, because look at us now, like looking at each other, speaking over the internet. And 40 years ago, they were just typing out text.
Yeah.
So, Ken brings home a BBC microcomputer, nothing to do with the TV channel, it was just a brand of computer, with its Edward processing chip. So, Edward is like Microsoft Word or Pages or what we use nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick took to it immediately. It was a step up from a typewriter and it kept her busy, exactly what Ken had hoped, because Nick was a lively character, and as much as he loved her as a friend, living with her for 24/7 was hard work. The computer, he hoped, would entertain her, and it did. Nick spent hours writing up her sketches, totally engrossed in her work. What none of them knew yet was that this humble word processor was about to become the gateway to one of the strangest mysteries they would ever encounter.
Oh, God.
One evening, Ken decided he needed a break from the cottage. The atmosphere had become stifling, and he wanted to get out for a while. So he and the girls headed out to visit his friend Dave, spending a few hours putting the world to rights over drinks and conversation. When they returned home, Ken noticed that Nick had left the computer on. Curious and figuring he might take a peek at what she'd been working on, he opened up the floppy disk. That's when he noticed something strange. There was an unknown file on the disk titled KDN. Ken knew that Nick's files were all labelled with single letters. So, like, she'd have file A, file B. And the only other file on the disk was a school timetable from another teacher, since the floppy disk, like the computer, had been borrowed. With a sense of growing unease, he opened the KDN file. The words on the screen made his blood run cold. Ken, Deb, Nick. True are the nightmares of a person that fears, safe are the bodies of the silent world. Turn, pretty flower, turn towards the sun, for you shall grow and sow. But the flower reaches too high and withers in the burning light. Get out your bricks. Pussycat, pussycat went to London to seek fame and fortune. Faith must not be lost, for this shall be your redeemer. There you go.
That's weird.
Just a little bit. So the text was obviously meant for them, and what I'll do with all the texts that I talk about, I will put them on the Facebook page because they're not written like one letter's caps and then there's a space and then there's a bit more of the word, and then it's not written in a logical way, if that makes sense. So I'll post what the text looked like when this episode comes out. The text was obviously meant for them, and it made Ken's stomach sink. He had no explanation whatsoever, neither did Debbie. It left them both speechless. Desperate to make sense of it, Ken took the floppy disk into school to print off the bizarre poem. Strangely, seeing it on paper made it seem less scary, as if its power was somehow diminished outside of the glowing screen. Shortly after, he returned the borrowed computer. With Christmas approaching and Nick leaving to stay with her family, the cottage would soon feel a little less crowded. But whatever had written that message wasn't going anywhere. Just before Nick left, there had been another unnerving stacking incident. This time it was a 4-pack of lager,
A packet of crisps.
that had been rearranged into a tower. And the plastic that held the tins together was found burnt and shriveled on the floor. Opposite the lager tower stood a second tower, 4 stacked tins of cat food. The novelty of these kitchen stacks had long since worn thin. But the sight of the burnt plastic made their hearts sink. Whatever was doing this was no longer just moving objects, it could burn things too. That's scary.
I mean, that is creepy.
And so,
Yeah.
the weird food-based architecture continued. Every few days, some new impossible stack would appear, another eerie addition to the cottage's growing collection of unexplained phenomena. It had become part of their new and unsettling reality. Nick returned after the end-of-year festivities and asked again if Ken could borrow a computer from school. He agreed as he wanted to jot down an agreement between himself, John, and
Stennett, you said.
as they were going to try and get some of their music out in the world. So that's what Ken does. He goes and gets another word processor. Someone had been using the computer and mistakenly left it on before the trio went out for a bit. Upon their return, Nick noticed the glowing screen and sighed. Oh no, it was left on again. Should we check for messages? None of them expected to find anything, of course, so they were utterly shocked to discover a strange file titled Reate. They opened it and found what appeared to be a very old-timey, strangely written letter addressed to them. I'll try my best to read the old-timey letter as they saw it, and then I'll translate it afterwards. I write on behalf thee of many. What strange words thou speak, although I must confess that I hath also been ill-schooled. Sometimes methink altercations are somewhat bareful, for they break many a sleeps in mine bed. Thou art goodly, man, who hath fanciful woman, who dwell in mine home. I hath no want to affray, for only since mine half-witted antic has ripped atwain mine bound hath I been wretched a night. I have seen many altercations, lastly charge house and thou home. 'Tis a fitting place with lights which devil maketh, and costly things that only mine friend Edmund Grey can afford, or the king himself. 'Twas a great crime to have bribed mine house. Okay, so I didn't get any of that. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't.
No, it was hard.
So translated, what strange words you speak, although I must confess that I too have been badly educated. Sometimes it seems charges are somewhat obstructive, for many a time they disturb me sleeping in my bed. You are a worthy man who has a fanciful woman, and you live in my house. I have no wish to alarm you, for it is only since a half-witted fool ripped apart my confines have I been tormented at nights. I have seen many charges, lastly the schoolhouse and your home. It is a fitting place with lights which the devil makes, and costly things which only my friend Edmund Grey can afford, or the king himself. It was a great crime to have stolen my house. Signed L.W. The words sent a chill down their spines. This wasn't just some prank or a random computer glitch. Someone was communicating with them, and it had been watching them. The trio now began to think seriously about ghosts or poltergeists. Ken decided to ask a fellow teacher from his school, Peter, the English teacher, about the letter, because obviously he's an English teacher, so he knows about all the old-timey language, and he was absolutely fascinated by the story and the language that had been used in the last message, and he'd taken it to study and said to Ken that if it was a hoax, it was a bloody good one, as some of the words used even he had never heard before, but upon researching them, he'd found their meaning and they'd been used correctly. He asked Ken to keep him in the loop if any other messages appeared, and Ken agreed. He felt happy knowing he had someone outside of the cottage to discuss this with. This brings us to the 9th of February. Ken's friend John came to visit. So not the John that has 6 toes and size 5 feet.
Fancies Deb.
And fancies Deb. This is another one.
Fine.
The friends told him all about the strange disturbances, and John very matter-of-factly said, well, I think you should write back. And so the 3 of them worked on a clumsy message full of questions for their new invisible pen pal. It read as follows. In the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, Dear L.W., thank you for your message. We are sorry for disturbing you. What would you like us to do? Did you live in a house on this land in about 1620? Because that's when they kind of worked the language to come from.
Makes sense.
Do you want us to tell you more about our time? Why write a poem? Who is Edward Grey? Is he related to the Egerton family? Do you have a family? Is the King James or Charles Stuart? What is the charge house? Was this village called Doddleston in your life? And how many families lived here? Thank you very much for your messages. Thank you for not making us afraid. Ken, Debbie, and John. So they sent LW a message. And that's end of part 1.
Oh, we're gonna have
that was
more
a surprise.
Oh,
It's a series.
Oh, there's more shopping lists. Come in.
I thought I haven't done a series for ages.
How many parts are there going to be? Or are you not going to tell us?
Probably only 2, possibly 3.
oh, I'm loving this one though.
Wait, well...
Can't wait to see
So
what
far,
next
so
next
much.
week's stack is.
But it was really funny.
It's good.
I
though.
think we were just in a giggly mood tonight. I mean, it has been I'm really sorry we laughed so much, but it has been a bit ridiculous. I'm looking at Tash and a black square with a B on it.
Has it got a B on it, though? It's got a B on it for me.
Yeah.
B.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, it's just been one of those silly nights. If you've made it through this far,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I've started an Etsy shop and I'm going to very shortly, probably tomorrow. So by the time this podcast is out, there probably will be a few bits on there. Have some podcast stickers on there.
Yay!
So definitely going to do our logo. I've made I want to join a cult one.
Oh.
I've made stay safe, don't kill people, and
Keep it weird.
keep it weird. That's what we say.
Nice.
And yeah, it's taking time. I will be making badges as well and little tiny pins.
Great.
Lots of cute stuff and
Love it.
magnets and bookmarks and all the crafty shenanigans. So yeah, if you're interested, not only can you get a little bit of podcast merch, but it's completely handmade. So there you go.
Lovely.
Because most podcasts, if not all podcasts, they just go and join like massive sticker producers or t-shirt producers, but nay,
Not us.
not us.
Our local,
Not us.
baby.
Not us. Yeah, if you get a sticker from us, it's been touched by these hands.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd lick it.
I'm going to say possibly licked by me.
So if you fancy joining, I don't know, following my shop, that's it. You'll be kept up to date with any new things that I put on there. And my shop is called The Curious Craft Room. There we go. And it's full of just spooky stuff. There we go. The Curious Craft Room.
I love it. The curious.
If you have enjoyed this evening's episode, then rate us,
Yeah.
subscribe, talk about us to your friends,
Yarp.
leave us a review, all that jazz.
The poll. We'll put a poll up.
We're going to put a poll up. Emma's going to put the texts up. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of admin surrounding this episode, but
There
stick with
is.
it, guys. We appreciate it. And we will be back very soon.
Oh, yes.
So stay safe in the meantime, guys.
Yeah. Don't kill people.
And keep it weird.
Boy.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye. It was a normal... Are you ready?
Well,
Yeah. I mean, dude, we're so ready.
Let me just check that everything's recording properly first. Yes, it is. Don't want to do this for nothing. You two are knobs.
I love how she just drops back in and we just hear knobs.
Oh. Well, this is going to be so entertaining for you guys to sit here not listening to anything for ages. Oh no, fucking hell.
We're just sat here. No idea what's going on. Has she read any of it? Who knows?
God. Bless her. They've got waterbed. What, just stick a drop?
No, take a bottle of water to bed.
Oh, I was like, how are they going to drink the water out of a waterbed?
A little straw.
Oh, and Emma, when you lean back, it looks like you have horns.
Oh, God, Lord.
Oh.